Dr. Bhattacharya, it is an honor to have you on the podcast. Thank you.
Dr. Cole, so good to be on the podcast with you. Thank you.
I mean, could you ever imagine? I mean, so much has happened over the past few months. How are you feeling?
Today's an absolutely historic day. The report, this MAHA Commission Report, what it does is it tells an incredibly sad story that's been building up over a generation. The bottom line, there's many bottom lines, but one of the bottom lines is that our kids today, if things go on as they are, we'll expect to live shorter, less healthy lives, more depressed, more over-medicated than their parents did at the same age.
Wow.
That can't go on. And what the MAHA Commission Report really is a clarion call to action, to do excellent science, to figure out how we can address this problem. This is maybe the most important problem in public health I've seen in my lifetime.
Out of all, and that is shocking in and of itself, those statistics, what specifically in the report do you find people are going to find the most shocking?
Well, if you read the front matter of the report, on topic after topic after topic, it tells the story of rising obesity rates, of rising childhood cancer rates, of rising diabetes rates, of depression at a mass scale. 1 in 4 teenage girls seriously considered suicide. We have it tells the story of an over-medication crisis where we take ADHD and we medicate it. We take so many conditions, say, okay, all these drugs are going to solve the problem, and yet nevertheless statistics keep going up. It tells the story of the economic links to this, right? So you have commercial interests that aren't necessarily serving the interests of health. It tells the story of the economic consequences of this. So you have 3 in 4 kids not eligible physically for military services. You have a huge amount of money we spend in our healthcare system, which is bankrupting the country, but not producing health.
Yeah.
It is a crisis. Now, I just say, I've been in this work for a very long time, Dr. Cole, and I've seen this, and I've sort of play itself out in the medical literature, in the health policy literature, in the epidemiology literature, but we've never done anything about it.
Yeah.
And this puts everything all in one place so you can understand in a clear and clean way that this is a crisis.
Yeah. Obviously, you're talking about big, complex topics. So many different opinions out there. Like, how do we start to tackle it? What are some initial steps the government's going to do for this?
Right. So I should stick to science, since I'm the National Institute of Health Director. Right. So because there's many things. You're absolutely right.
And the science is informing the policy.
So I think part of the problem is that in many situations we don't actually have excellent science. I'll just give you an example that everyone knows, and I guess as maybe you've even lived through. Maybe you're too young to live through all of it, but I lived through this. In 1968, the public health authorities declared eggs were the public enemy number 1. Don't eat too many eggs. Has too much cholesterol. It's going to cause heart attacks. And there was story after story where the science has proved that eggs are bad for you. A few years later, fast forward a few years later, and it turns out the science really wasn't that good.
Yeah.
What you had is actually quite bad evidence that led to recommendations at scale that actually probably caused more harm than good. Both economic harm and, of course, health harm.
Right.
Because the science then turns out, a few years later, I remember the 80s, it was, well, you can eat eggs, but only the whites.
Yeah.
Only the whites. And then there were the egg substitutes, and there was the
low-fat movement.
Exactly. All of it based on non-replicable science, or much of it based on non-replicable science.
Yeah.
And then now eggs are the perfect food.
Nature's multivitamin.
Yes.
The yolks.
No, exactly. I mean, it actually took me a while to get myself to eat the yolks after your years of programming the other way.
Well, that's the thing, right? I mean, we've been indoctrinated with this flimsy science, right? This sort of conflation between causation and correlation. So how do we start changing the hearts and minds? I don't know.
And so the key thing is, and you just actually nailed it right there. We have to have excellent science, and the question is, how do you decide what's true and false in science? I think we have to get back to basics. The basic way we decide what's true in science is replication. Honest replication. You have a scientific claim, or I have a scientific claim, but no one should believe it, even if it's published in a fancy journal, even if some top medical society says it, unless independent teams of people looking at it from different ways and different angles find the same answer.
Got it. The autism topic, right? Secretary Kennedy talked about looking at the causes over the coming year. What's your thoughts on that? I mean, coming into NIH with the data that's already there, I mean, what's your sense of this big topic?
Well, that is an enormous topic, especially since recent reports suggest that 1 in 31 children nationwide have an autism diagnosis. I mean, that's a very high number relative to just 20, 30, 40 years ago. And so the question is why?
Yeah.
And now the NIH has an excellent portfolio of research focused on what to do, how to provide support for kids with autism, characterizing the full spectrum of conditions. I mean, you have people who are just very high functioning. They have maybe some social awkwardness, but other than that, there's stuff that they can work on. You have you also have parents with kids that are severely disabled with the same diagnosis.
Yeah.
The question is, what really caused it? And unless you really start to grab that, it's really hard to know what to do about it and how to prevent it.
What do you think about the people that say it's just better diagnostics now? That's why we have more people that are autistic. There's always been this, then basically they're a test saying that the numbers haven't changed, that autism's the same as it's always been, it's just better awareness. I
mean, that's one hypothesis. Frankly, I've looked at the data and I just don't believe that can explain the meteoric rise in autism prevalence over the past 20 years.
Right.
It's not true that there were no support for autistic kids in 2005. That's just not true.
Right.
And so even studies that look with similar, like the same diagnostic criteria, tend to find a very sharp rise. And when I'm as a scientist, I want to make sure that I don't exclude any hypothesis, right? When I'm asking a question where I don't know the answer, and I don't know the answer, I don't know why autism has risen so much.
I think you brought up a good point of the same diagnosis. It's called a spectrum for a reason, and then you have these co-occurring conditions where some kids are nonverbal and they're really going through horrible neuro dysregulation and neuroinflammatory symptoms, and some people are just, it's a neurotype.
Yeah.
So I think so much of it is the conflation of terms, right? We're all talking about something different.
Yeah, and I think that what that points to is that we don't have excellent science yet.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
We don't fully understand what's going on. And, I think working with autistic kids and their families, the groups that represent them, that's the way forward. You get scientists working together, trying to understand the lived experience of autistic families, of the challenges that autistic kids face. I think what you'll end up with as an answer is that there are biomedical processes that are going on that we don't fully understand, that different kids with different biomedically co-occurring conditions maybe have a different biology that resulted in the condition than kids that are sort of less severely impacted.
Yeah.
And we're going to get a nuanced answer to the question. The problem has been, no one actually is, I don't want to overstate, it's been very difficult for scientists to honestly address the question about the etiology of autism.
Yeah.
Because if a scientist just puts their honest effort into it, they'll get accused of being an anti-vaxxer.
Yeah.
And what it means is it freezes the scientific process.
Yeah.
It doesn't allow scientists to do their thing.
Yeah, because it's so worried about being censored and being pigeonholed. Speaking of vaccines, to have great science, transparent science of the risks and benefits of vaccines, having an honest conversation with good science, what's NIH planning on doing on that topic?
Well, we have a vaccine development program. Most of the work on vaccine safety is done by the FDA.
Got it.
But I think the NIH can and should support that research. So, for instance, I would like to see more excellent research about the side effects of the COVID vaccine. Right? I've seen. This is true, by the way, also of long COVID. I mean, there's a lot of conditions that people stay away from. scientists stay away from because, again, they don't want to be accused of saying something politically incorrect. Long COVID, I think the NIH has actually devoted quite a bit of resources, and we still don't have an answer for many, many, many patients. But for the vaccine injured with COVID injuries, there's been very little effort at the NIH. I mean, that needs to change. Like, we need to cooperate more with the FDA, develop standards for determining causality that are better and more honest, and then really start to take an honest look at things like the COVID vaccine.
Do you think that the COVID mRNA vaccine should be on the vaccine schedule for kids, or
no? Yeah, I wrote an article in April 2021 with Martin Kulldorff of Harvard saying that it made no sense to recommend the COVID vaccine for kids because especially the benefit harm, right? So there was no real level of demonstrated benefit for children from taking the COVID vaccine because they had very low risk of dying. They'd gotten COVID anyways, and the vaccine didn't stop you from getting or spreading it.
Right.
And at the same time, there were certainly the possibility of harms, and it turns out the reality of harms, like with especially young men and myocarditis. Vaccines are not a magical thing. Like, you have to think about them the same way you think about every medical intervention. Consider the evidence, understand the quality of the evidence that's available, understand the benefits, the harms, and then balance it for different patients. It might be a very different answer you get for someone who's really, really sick, has lots of chronic conditions, are older, than you get for someone who's like 19 years old and perfectly healthy.
Yeah. What does the latest science say about the mRNA COVID vaccines? I mean, for adults specifically, what is the relative risks versus benefits?
Well, I mean, if you look at what other countries are doing,
I'm curious on that.
Most of Europe does not recommend the COVID vaccine for people under 65. They're looking at the evidence, the same evidence that American regulators were looking at, and concluding, I think correctly, that the benefit-harm calculations in 2025 do not lead you to say, let's go take booster number 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now, there may be people with particular immunocompromised conditions or other things that tilt the balance the other way. I mean, but even there, I would want to ask drug manufacturers to produce excellent evidence. You have to treat these things prudentially. Think carefully about the evidence. Demand better evidence when there isn't good evidence, and understand where each patient is coming from. It shouldn't just be a one-size-fit-all kind of policy.
Yeah. How do you think history is going to look back on the time that we came out of, where people, the mask mandates, having a card, needing a card to walk into a building, you're going to kill grandma if you don't get the vaccine?
You're giving me flashbacks. It was terrible. My kids were out of school for 2 years in California based on no evidence. Essentially, it was a dark age for science, the pandemic. We, in public health, embraced essentially interventions that had no evidence they would work. We knew for certain that some of those interventions were going to harm people at scale. Kids, the poor, working class people, huge numbers of people were put under house arrest effectively around the world. The economic consequences led to health consequences. There were reports from, for instance, by the UN that the economic consequences of the lockdowns were going to cause 100 million people to face starvation around the world. And yet we said that was wise for public health. I think we're going to look back on the days of COVID as a dark age for public health, and I hope we can learn lessons so it never happens again.
Yeah, well said. Any emerging research that you're excited about in the alternative emerging therapies? I'm thinking stem cells, peptides. Anything exciting you?
I mean, there's a couple of things that are I don't know if it fits the alternatives, but like, so for instance, now we have effectively a cure for sickle cell anemia.
Amazing.
Using a gene editing technique that actually is safe for a thing that I thought would never happen. We now can do. There are advances in so many areas. The issue is that those advances have not translated over to the biggest problems our kids face. Rising obesity, rising diabetes, rising child cancer rates, depression, autism, ADHD, over-medicalization. The scientific advances need to match the scope of the problem. And I'm really excited by the scientific advances. You could imagine I might be as an NIH director, but I would love to see those scientific advances really focus on the problems we face more than they have.
Yeah. What about emerging Alzheimer's research? I've heard some exciting things coming down the pipeline at NIH. Anything you can tell us?
I mean, well, the problem is still enormous, right? So we still have a tremendous number of families facing the fact that their parents, their loved ones, their grandparents are going to lose their memory over time, lose their ability to function independently over time. There have been some advances, I think, in the science, but again, they have not translated over into interventions that actually address the clinical problem.
Yeah.
We know a lot more about the scientific processes that lead to Alzheimer's. There's a lot of I think sort of going down blind paths that we did before. I'm hopeful now that those blind paths are recognized as blind paths, and we move to a broader thinking about what causes Alzheimer's and how to prevent it and how to treat it. But that science is still, I think, not yet officially, effectively translated over. I'll tell you one I'm really excited about, and this is speculative, so we'll see if it actually pans out. A colleague of mine who was at Stanford, where I came from before I was an NIH director, he ran a study looking at the old shingles vaccine called Zostavax. Didn't work very well against shingles, but he's found in careful studies where he's compared people who got it versus people who don't based on like policies in Denmark and elsewhere where there were age-based cutoffs. He found that people who got the old shingles vaccine develop cognitive decline from Alzheimer's at lower rates in subsequent years than people who didn't get it.
Interesting.
What if a cheap, basically safe vaccine, basically really safe vaccine that didn't work against shingles, although it was supposed to, ends up being the way we manage and prevent Alzheimer's?
Beautiful.
I mean, we need a great randomized trial to check if that's true, but that's really exciting.
Promising. Right? And there's a viral inflammatory component to these neurodegenerative issues, that sort of concept.
It makes sense, right? I mean, the chickenpox virus ends up in your dorsal nerve roots. We know it has an affinity for our nervous system. Yeah. So why wouldn't you have some a vaccine that potentially helps against that if it's focused on our nervous system, our brain, and our where the root problem of Alzheimer's lies, right? Yeah.
Well, and I think that you brought up a great point. Is that you brought the exciting prospects of a vaccine being a solution, the sort of pejorative of labeling certain people, the administration, as anti-vax. It's science without presupposition.
Exactly.
Pro-evidence.
Yeah, we're pro-evidence. We're pro-gold standard science. We're against dogma. I think the measles vaccine is a good vaccine, especially in situations like now where measles is more prevalent. It's important. I vaccinated my own kids for the measles vaccine when they were little. I think the evidence base is very strong. The evidence base for the COVID vaccine, much less strong, and yet the same dogma applies. Science should not embrace dogma. We should be allowed scientists to ask questions honestly, and then we can have debates and discussions about the quality of the evidence. That's normal. What's not normal is if you don't take this vaccine, you can't go to school, you can't fly anywhere, you can't work, you have to lose your job, even if you've already had the disease and recovered. Doesn't matter.
My friend, I could talk to you for hours, but I don't have. They're cutting us off. But I want to have you back for a full conversation if you'd ever come back.
I would love that. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Dr. Bhattacharya.